Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. It's time to watch Chicago PD again after a disappointing few years. Chicago PD has had a disappointing few seasons, but season 12 has corrected many of the problems, making the procedural worth watching again. When it originally premiered, Chicago PD was the best one Chicago show. It focused on the lengths Hank Voight, Jason Begg, was willing to go to keep Chicago safe and get justice for crime victims. However, in recent years, the series backed off of letting Voight push the envelope, turning it into a run-of-the-mill procedural when television is oversaturated with them. Chicago PD Season 12 introduced Patrol Officer Kiana Cook, Toya Turner, marking the first time a patrol officer was involved in the action since Burgess Marina Squarciati was promoted in Season 4. Cook was promoted quickly, joining the intelligence unit within a few episodes. However, the addition of this new character coincided with other changes that are helping making Chicago PD watchable again, such as introducing a new villain for Voight to butt heads with while he bends the rules in the name of justice. The early seasons of Chicago PD offered a more nuanced perspective on police work. While Voight often crossed ethical lines, the series made an effort to demonstrate the reasons he felt he needed to do so. Additionally, more aspects of police work were shown thanks to the inclusion of patrol officers who often worked with the intelligence unit. However, that began to change when Atwater Leroyce Hawkins was promoted at the end of Season 1. The patrol officer aspect disappeared after Season 4, when Burgess was promoted, but the more concerning problem in recent years has been the number of high-profile character exits. Characters like Antonio Dawson, John Seda, Jay Halstead, Jesse Lee Soffer, and Haley Upton, Tracy Spiridakos, all exited the series, leaving large holes in the Chicago PD cast and making it harder to invest in the show. Furthermore, stories became more formulaic and the later seasons of Chicago PD often relied on the cops getting into extreme danger, culminating with Voight being kidnapped by a serial killer. These issues have resulted in declining ratings. Chicago PD has been steadily losing viewers since Season 8, and the current season's ratings are the worst yet. It's unfortunate that Season 12 has lower ratings than the previous seasons via TV series finale, as the series seems to have finally gotten back on track, but these low ratings are likely a reflection of the disappointing stories in Season 11 and the loss of Chicago PD's Haley Upton. Chicago PD used to be one of the most popular of the One Chicago shows, second only to Chicago Fire. However, in the past several seasons, Chicago Med has handily beaten Chicago PD in the ratings. So far, Chicago Med Season 10 has almost 1 million viewers more than Chicago PD, via One Chicago Center. This is bad news for the police procedural, as it has always been far more popular than its medical counterpart, despite being on 2 hours later. Of course, there could be several reasons for the change in ratings. Chicago Med has a new showrunner who is taking the medical series in a different direction that is likely to be interesting to viewers who were not sold on the medical drama in previous years. High-stakes stories such as Sharon's stalker arc might attract larger audiences. Still, while Chicago Med's ratings are rising and Chicago Fires are staying steady, Chicago PD is losing viewers. Thus, people choose to watch one or both of the other One Chicago shows while turning the TV off when Chicago PD comes on. While there's not much Chicago PD can do about actors choosing to leave after more than a decade with the police procedural, it can change its storytelling direction to make it more pleasing to audiences, and it has done that beautifully in Season 12. One of the best choices Chicago PD has made is adding Deputy Commissioner Charlie Reed, Sean Hatosy, as a new villain who is out to get Voight. This addition is a throwback to earlier seasons where Voight was constantly under scrutiny by higher-ups in the police department and doubled down on questionable behavior, rather than playing political games. Additionally, Reed has already put Burgess in his debt by reassigning her to intelligence after she passed the detective's exam, and trying to figure out what he is up to is leaving audiences at the edge of their seats. Chicago PD Season 12 has a full cast of interesting characters, which leads to more complex cases than have been seen in recent years. Newcomer Kiana Cook offers a fresh perspective as well as adding some more diversity to the cast. She is uncomfortable with the morally gray areas Voight leads the team into, which leads to compelling conflicts. Cook helps round out a cast that now centers on Burgess and Ruzek, Patrick Fluger, as well as turning Torres, Benjamin Levy Aguilar, into a gray character who is reminiscent of Dawson. One of the most significant problems for Chicago PD is that Voight has become far too mellow. This character change was likely a reaction to real-life police brutality. Many police procedurals have backed off from the idea of justifying police violence in order to show support for real-life victims. However, it doesn't work for this show for Voight to be calm, collected, and committed to following the rules. One of the reasons this series became popular is because Voight is the perfect anti-hero, the cop who will break every rule in the book for a good cause. Thus, the most important thing Chicago PD can do to win back viewers is to restore Voight to his original character. While it's important to be sensitive to victims of police violence, Voight's cowboy persona sets Chicago PD apart from other police procedurals. Thus, he needs to be depicted as the heroic outlaw archetype that he originally was. Chicago PD has yet to find the right balance between allowing Voight to go rogue and expressing disapproval of police brutality. Season 12 has taken steps in the right direction with its Voight versus Reed story. Chicago PD also needs to avoid formulaic storytelling, as that is one of the biggest issues with recent seasons. Fortunately, the series has begun course-correcting. Adding Cook has shaken things up somewhat, and if Chicago PD returns to character-driven storytelling instead of gimmicks, such as putting cops in extreme danger, it will again become the powerful show it used to be in its early seasons. It's time to watch Chicago PD again. After a disappointing few years where the show seemed to lose its edge, the excitement is returning. Fans, myself included, have been yearning for the pulse-pounding drama, the tight-knit camaraderie of the intelligence unit, and the gritty reality of Chicago's streets. As someone who's been following Chicago PD since the beginning, there's been a noticeable lull, a loss of momentum, a dip in intensity. But now, with a renewed sense of purpose, the series is poised to reclaim its crown as one of the best in the police procedural genre. The first few seasons were a whirlwind. From the moment Detective Hank Voight, Jason Begg, appeared on screen, the show was an adrenaline rush, filled with moral ambiguity, intense confrontations, and the kind of character depth that makes you care about every twist and turn. The arrival of Erin Lindsay, Sophia Bush, and the development of Jay Halstead, Jesse Lee Soffer, added layers to the narrative, pulling the audience deeper into the personal struggles and triumphs of the characters. The chemistry between the actors was palpable, and it's what made Chicago PD stand out among its peers. But something changed as the show progressed. It was like the spark dimmed, the once thrilling confrontations becoming repetitive, the storylines losing the fresh unpredictability that initially made it a must-watch. While the show still had its moments, they were fewer and farther between. Fans began to notice that the once iconic Voight, with his complex code of ethics, was becoming somewhat of a caricature. A leader who was so morally compromised that it seemed as though he was drifting farther from his character's initial foundation. Other characters, like Antonio Dawson, John Seda, and Lindsay, also seemed to fade in terms of narrative focus, as if the heart and soul of the show was being lost in favor of more superficial thrills. And let's not forget the unfortunate revolving door of characters. With key players like Lindsay and Antonio leaving, the show struggled to replace their voids with characters that felt as grounded and compelling. At times, it felt like the series was just running on fumes, trying to recapture that magic without fully understanding what made it special in the first place. But now, with a new direction on the horizon, it feels like the show is ready to step back into the ring. There's a fresh energy in the air. For starters, Jay Halstead's evolution into a more complex and driven character feels like a resurgence of the show's earlier days. His growing commitment to justice and his internal battle with the darker aspects of law enforcement bring back the moral complexity that made Chicago PD so engaging in the first place.